ドーナツ
も
も
買い
買い
ましょう。
ましょう。
あ、ドーナツも買いましょう。
Yeah. I try to moderate. Maku is actually AI, so you can hear weird phrases all the time. Whoa! Fictitious. Well, technically, yes. Like using the word robust. I think I've used it a couple times. Robust. I would love to entertain some robust counter arguments to the shaming of polyglots. Something like that. I don't know. That was very heavy-handed. That was incredibly heavy-handed. I was not ready to use the word robust. What was the other word? Safeguards. When I'm around people who uses strong language, I tend to put up my safeguards in order to maintain a more robust appeal. So the reason why fictitious, I think the inside joke here, a lot of time, at least I feel where fictitious is going, is there was a subreddit about someone who said like certain words are telltale signs of AI, and some of the words were robust and safeguards. I forgot what the others were, but it was pretty funny, and I use those words. In fact, the videos that I watch, the scientists that I watch, trigger like 2 or 3 of those words every 30 sentences, and one of them is robust. In fact, the first one wasn't even a scientist. It was a guy who described running statistics, track and field statistics, and he dropped the word robust. So apparently that's something that ChatGPT uses very commonly. Maku is robust. Yeah. So if I AI generate my homework answer, takes the word robust out, check. I don't know about that. Someone, what you call it? I think someone in private challenged me on like what would I look for if I was still teaching to demonstrate how I know something is ChatGPT and it isn't. And the answer is interesting. I've asked other people, what would you look for in like a homework essay? How would you check if someone's using ChatGPT as a prompt? A very quick check. And I would take the behavioral approach. It's usually why I talk to people the way I do. I typically focus on logic and the human condition. So ChatGPT still is a bit behind, like it can be in the future. I'd be fooled all the time. I'm not saying I'm not an expert that's immune to ChatGPT, but I like to ask what people look for. And for me, I look for eternal logic most of the time. Easy, just ask them a simple question. How does that stop someone from giving you a cogent ChatGPT question? Like what type of question would you ask your I need more details. What does that so if you give a student that, what kind of question would you give a student to prevent them from using a ChatGPT generated question? And I guess we're talking about essays here. So an essay, because you can just tell the robot vibes. I don't know what I'm talking about. Think about it like a language approach, right? Jamie, think about it like from a language approach. What are your telltale signs? What would you be your approach? I'm curious. I'm very curious. From my perspective, I wouldn't be too confident. However, I have a idea in mind that I would go about it. And I can tell sometimes. I don't think I've ever really had someone like, oh, try to stomp me challenge. I don't like doing that. I know someone's gonna be able to stomp me. I don't. Usually it's just to safeguard myself. Like, am I talking to a ChatGPT user? Like that. Right. 今日
クライアント
クライアントと
会い
会い
ま
ますす。Okay.
バスの運転手の仕事はどうですか？バス
バス
の
の
運転手のの
What is up with this phrase?
仕事
うん
のはどうですか？
Overuse of certain words, maybe in a language context, but for AI generated things, interesting. Advanced words when simple ones can be used in their place, maybe? Okay, okay. Everyone, this chat is AI, you don't know it yet? I'm a deep fake, you know? Like you don't know it yet, but a synthetic human being. I mean, it fooled a bunch of people on social media. Why can't it happen here? Actually, there's a very big telltale sign on how to tell or like how to tell when it's a deep fake thing in like in a personality way. But I like where Jamie's going here. I wanted to add a little bit more to what Jamie's going. So the overuse of a word actually tends to happen with someone who has an underdeveloped vocabulary. However, sometimes overused words come in patterns and clusters as opposed to random. So that can be a telltale sign. If you understand the writer, you can probably see clustering in their word usage. Much like if they're using advanced ones as opposed to simple ones. So they are always using a lot of advanced ones. You can, if you give them a question that crosses two different types of discipline, their advanced words will shift. As in, the things they're really comfortable with will have more advanced words, likely to have more advanced words than the ones that they're not comfortable with. So you can challenge them with a question like, how do you feel about X, Y, and Z, and tell me about what it is. So oftentimes, if it's an AI, it'd probably be pretty consistent throughout. However, when you're talking to a human being, there's a chance they will shift diction based on how comfortable they are in writing about the topic. So a lot of times consistency, much like you said, the overuse, but more like consistent. If it's incredibly consistent, and there's no emotions, right? Yeah, there's no emotional sway. And emotional sway comes with diction. So if you see that suddenly when you're asking them, what do you think about all the people who starve every day, right? And then it'd be like this consistent, overly simple vibe. But you ask them, well, what about starving and the lack of drinking water? You can kind of see that the person will likely sway back and forth in terms of the contextual diction. So words can become, unless you're a sociopath, yes. Unless you're a sociopath, we're not, that's, as long as you're not in the outliers, the statistical likelihood is that someone will have a pattern of speech. And that pattern of speech elicits an emotion. So when you ask them disagreeable topics, or agreeable topics, or controversial topics, or making controversial statements, it's not middle ground most of the time. It doesn't sound like professional speech in the environment of a classroom. In public, you can end up sounding like a politician. So, for example, I've made this joke before, and fictitious is not really, it's actually kind of true. So if I ever watch my writing that I do, when the writing that I do professionally, right, it's very neutral. It's incredibly neutral. So if I'm concerned about talking correctness, as in, oh, it may or may not exist if we consider the following parameters, and if we consider the possible parameters, we can come to this conclusion. Scientific writing tends to have that type of feel, and that can be imitated quite uncannily. Like I have seen prompts in ChatGPT where I almost felt like it was something I've written, right? So outside of that, if you wanted to challenge someone to see if they're writing their prompts, you play against that, as in, hey, first describe to me, I don't know, the circumference of the planet, like circumference of the Earth. How would you calculate the circumference of the Earth? And then how do you feel about its respective size to the sun? And then watch how they react to that. Because generally, I would say a ChatGPT would continue to be analytical about it. If you use trigger words, like they would basically take the circumference of the sun, the volume of the sun, and then compare it to the Earth, come to a very unadulterated, hyper objective thing. And some humans do that pretty well. However, there's gonna be some language shifting back and forth, and then challenging them then to talk about like philosophically about things, that can really throw in a little wrench. So that's usually what my approach would be. And I would throw in a wrench, like say I'm teaching chemistry, I would, or like I'm doing an essay, I would ask them something else in the whole prompt. Like if their whole essay was, what's the lab results, what are the technology, like what are the methods, what are the results, etc. And then ChatGPT pumped it out, and then I would say something like, what do you think you did wrong, what could possibly be a human error here, and how do you feel you're going to fix it in all of those things. So what happens is, yeah, they can still pump out the ChatGPT essay, and no matter what, they're gonna have to go back and read whatever ChatGPT pumped out and then add their own thing. So in the long run, I don't care if they use ChatGPT as a teacher, they're still reading whatever ChatGPT is doing, and they're doing work. So it's not about punishing the people or relying on crutches like ChatGPT. It's taking advantage of what I know ChatGPT can do and getting the students to indirectly do things with it. So then the student, whether they know it or not, they might end up working harder than just writing the thing themselves. So you're going back and you're checking all the things you don't naturally do. That takes a really long time. That's like taking someone's work with no foundational understanding of what that person's work was like, and then immediately trying to imitate it and then make it feel like it's your own. I honestly think that takes longer to not get caught by experienced people than doing the thing yourself, right? In your own words and stuff. It's kind of like, would you rather try to memorize someone's essay or put it into your own words? And oftentimes, I would give a student a better grade. If it was in my control, I would give a student a better grade for attempting to put something in their own words, but maybe slightly erroneous, versus they were able to memorize a text and basically wrote it back out. That's on one case, learning, right? And failures equal success kind of thing. And that's nothing, in my opinion. That's not the goal, the purpose of a teacher, right? The student has learned how to use a tool. Now, you still can use tools. So my example was trying to get ChatGPT to be a useful tool for the students. And that's where I was kind of leading you guys with certain questions. But the setup was like a plug on if I had a classroom and I know my students are using ChatGPT, instead of working against them and telling them what they can't do, I will teach them how to take advantage of that tool and be even better than that. Humans made those tools, in my opinion. So instead of letting the tools define the human, they can use the tool and continue to grow from the tool. So beyond the tool, right? So that's kind of my thoughts on the whole. Someone already asked me about this stuff because I don't work in academia anymore, and then there's like this rampant use of AI to get pass and grades and good grades and all that stuff, and replacing me with an AI and stuff. It's kind of a real thing. I honestly, most of the stuff I say when someone asks me about statistics and opinions, I can be replaced with ChatGPT. I honestly believe that is true. So when you ask me, oh, Maku, what is the most efficient way to learn Japanese? ChatGPT. And what I mean by that is ask ChatGPT. It'll list you all the stuff that everyone has threw at my face, because that's what they gather from the internet too. If you ask me, what's the best way to learn Japanese? I will ask you 50 more questions, and I'll do my best to integrate all that information of 50 questions to at least get something that is about you, not some hyper objective formula that your favorite influencer is peddling, right? So not the top 10 lists or statistical average of 20 top tier lists stuff. If you're gonna use your time and you ask me, you're gonna have to answer. We're gonna have to take some time and sit down for like 4 or 5 hours and at least give me some context. That is something ChatGPT still cannot offer for now. I don't know about machine learning. I don't know what the limits are, but for now, I can tell you it's a great place to start. Much like every other tool, it's a great place to start. So if you want to start your essay with ChatGPT, by all means do. And if you grow from that and use that, I can smile and say, you deserve to graduate, and I am not concerned about you anymore. If you give me something that is none of your work, I am so worried I can't even barely communicate. So then I would like try to do things to offset my. When someone clearly finds it okay to not want to show how cool they are or how great they are, that's when I start getting concerned about the person. If you feel like you have no measurable value at all and you're getting by with not even interested in what you can create, that's where I'm more worried about the person than I am with whatever they can do. Because that's a person that doesn't strive to express anything, right? Like, and it's very deep cut, because that could also be a person who's depressed and have low self-esteem, low self-value, feel like it's not worth doing anything because the internet tells you suck at everything, that kind of thing. Just a little digression. I digress. How would you punish the person when they only used AI and none of their brain? I wouldn't punish the person. I would ask them, I would have them evaluate what they're gaining from using AI, and then offer them other alternatives that might be interesting to them. So, for example, if I propose that it's like, what did you find valuable about using AI? They'll make a list. I don't know what it is. It'll be dependent on that list. Then I will counter with more desirable things. more desirable things. And I will try to convince them that something on this list is pretty goated. And it takes that one thing, you put it in here, and it'll drive them to do whatever they want. You get that? So for one thing, it's like, a lot of times it's social relationships, right? So sometimes I might be able to ask like, well, what happens when you need to express your feelings? Right? I focus on psychology, so expressing your feelings. How can you express, like, are you able to express to me how much you hate something and how much you love something? It could be a video game, it could be something. So if you can do that, wouldn't it be nice if you could use whatever you have to express it in your essay? Would it be faster? Does it feel more honest to yourself? Ask them if ChatGPT captures their emotions. Will you remember what ChatGPT wrote versus what you've wrote with your own words? Think about when you become 20 years old. 2 years of writing. Will you feel that the ChatGPT prompts that you submitted have more sentimentalism than the 2 years you spent writing things in your own word? That's legacy building. ChatGPT can't give you legacy building that you spent time investing. So the idea is to try to challenge them and see what they're getting from something. If you ask them what they're getting, you can then ante up, as in, what else can I offer you? Oftentimes, you don't have the time to say what you're doing for them and how they can see it, because if a teacher is gonna tell you, oh, in 5 years you'll thank me, right? But what does that look like? What is the thing that makes the current generation of apps so effective? You get to see it happen. Rewards, progress, stats, right? States. Projection. Like projection of where you're going to be. A roadmap. So the question you try to tackle is, okay, you're going to continue using ChatGPT. I can't spell ChatGPT. PTT. ChatGPT. You ask them things like, are you going to be proud of your work? Do one day you want to speak without relying on something? Right? Maybe you want to grow up to be a role model. Well, are they going to see ChatGPT? Or you? There, it goes on, but there are very encouraging ways where, like, it basically challenges me to figure out how much I can understand them and how much they want something. If you know what they want, it's going to be helpful. So you ask them what they want first, or what they're getting from something, and then you can beat that, right? Instead of doing what other people do. We'll turn this into a digression. I think that I've been on this topic long enough for digression, right? For example, Duolingo. You could do the other way, which most people do, which is using the word punish. So like you punish people for using Duolingo in order to convert people to Anki or immersion, right? The fear of punishment is FUD. It's using fear. Well, for me, if I am someone who uses Anki and immersion, and my job is to persuade someone to using Anki and immersion, my first inclination is to demonstrate that this thing offers more than Duolingo. That's not what the majority of people do to convince me. They tell me how bad Duolingo. So you use these things. So as a teacher, instead of taking something away, which they clearly know how to use better than I do, I can tell you now, right? If I go up to a kid, that kid will know how to command ChatGPT way more than me. They've invested so much time to trying to get away, hide it, right? So already, you can already assume if they're good, like if they're getting away with it, right? If they're getting away with it, they're spending a lot of effort. They're spending a lot of effort to making ChatGPT do something to trick you. So you know what? I want to know, what does ChatGPT do for them? If they say, oh, I can do this and I can do this, I'm like, what if you can do all of that and more? I'll let you do all of that, since you've already told me you can do that, and add on to that. I'll teach you. What if I can teach you how to ask better questions, make things with ChatGPT. And the real goal is be better than ChatGPT. Like if they think GPT is doing everything now, you offer them more. What if whatever you're doing, you can do more than that? If you think ChatGPT is so good now, you can be better than that. And that, in my opinion, is a more provocative position to be in. Oftentimes when you're thinking about products, right? You can go the lazy way and attack your opponents. In my opinion, this is a lazy way. This is called anti-competitive practice, just so you know. If people want to give it a specific name, it's called anti-competitive practice. You prevent your opponent from succeeding, so therefore you don't have to improve your product. You do not have to improve your product if your opponent fails. That's how Duolingo is being fought. Duolingo often is being fought by keeping it down, as opposed to suggesting it improve or fix, like improve it. Have people continue to use it and fix it, or like have competition to improve it. You improve by offering competitive offers. So kids resonate with that really well. Adults, maybe less so. On the adult side, sentimentalism can be overpowering. The younger you get, though, the more likely you're talking about raw output, visible rewards, things that are tangible. When you talk to adults, they might be thinking 20 years, 15 years, and some things like, oh, I like my movies the way they are from the 60s. So there are a lot more nuances that prevent this from happening. But generally speaking, they're not the ones that going straight to ChatGPT for everything, right? The ones that are adults now, like 30 plus, who made before ChatGPT. But in this case, you got to give them something more exciting, something more tantalizing, right? And unfortunately, there's a drawback to all of this, right? The kids could be asking so much that it could lead to the YouTube situation or the TikTok situation, where all the people who are providing stuff is so one-upping each other that it leads to what we were just talking about. The sensationalism, the bigger and better, and the constant. So there is a upper limit to this. My attempt is going to try to make it personal, as in like personal in a positive way. I think kids like the idea of being better than the things they use. They're constantly striving to be better. So as a teacher, in my opinion, you try to get them to feel that you are making them better, not tearing them down. Right? Tearing them down. Well, I can tell you, kids are really good at fighting the teardown. Like, they're probably far more tenacious than. Or you get a kid that's really depressed, and they break down, and then that becomes your problem too. So, you're in a lose-lose situation if you continue to fight against something. So for me, if someone feels like they're obligated to fake something, right? And this is my sappy approach. I'm going to try to convince them that they don't need to fake anything. Or not the things that matter. I'm going to at least somehow get them to make something that isn't fake. And work from there. Work on that. Although I'm not a formal teacher anymore, and I don't know how I would go about doing this. It'll be very difficult for like a classroom of 100 people. But as a tutor, or as a tutor or a mentor, where it's like one-on-one with 4 people, maybe 4 max, this would be the scale I would do. And then all this, maybe I will take up, like, I would spend 10 years. This hasn't happened to me ever yet. I would spend 10 years collecting experiences from this, and maybe I can come up with like a book of consistencies that you can try, that has maybe a higher rate of, that may have a decently above average rate of success. And that's often those books you read about, the ones that are constantly referred to over time. It's built on a life of wisdom, right? A lot of experimental, or not experimental, but experience-based wisdom. And they don't give you anything but, hey, this is likely to perform above average. It's not the best. It's not the greatest. True, like, in my opinion, true experts don't make guarantees. Guarantees are that's career suicide, in my opinion. And just like the whole like shaming the polyglots and stuff, when it comes out a lot. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my reputation and my credibility, even though I don't work professionally, to risk saying, use my approach, you'll succeed. If you sit down with me and you give me 10 hours, I will at least try my darndest to convince you that you don't need to fake anything to be effective, right? I'm not going to tell them they're not going to fail, though. So they might feel that they failed themselves. But one thing I have control over is they can't fail me if they try. So at least one person telling someone that as long as you try, you can't fail me, that's something that is outside their control. But I have control over it. So I can assure them, at least I have control over that feeling. So it'll give them possibly the confidence and boost, and maybe some other things. Like, if ChatGPT, what does ChatGPT offer? Do they offer you comfort? Encouragement? I mean, they could, actually. Honestly, AI training is pretty remarkable now, where there are companion AI, right? Companion AI that's trying to tackle that very essence. The thing I'm doing now, there are many almost growing exponentially examples of effective companion AI that allows one to get out of their shell. And that's pretty cool, in my opinion. Even if it means I don't get a chance to do this anymore or whatnot, it's nice to know that it's hard to approach a stranger because a human being has obligations, biases, and stuff. But if you have a companion AI, at least that's a great place to start. You know? Tools are a great place to start. Great place to start. Right? Much like when you're sieving through hundreds of YouTube influencers and you're picking one to start. Right? There's a downside to this. The deep cut here is because of the way this works, it dehumanizes the people behind the content. So you know what? As much as AI is replacing things, well, at least AI, you don't have to worry about dehumanizing AI. Right. So there are some evidence, in my opinion, right now, trends that AI companions are a bit more flexible because they can be trained to do something that doesn't end up having the human component where it may dehumanize. When you dehumanize someone, you'll know when you start dehumanizing someone. Like taking a dump on hundreds of people's work trivially. This is low-key my bootstrap back to making it related to Duolingo. The further you are in dehumanizing people, the more likely that you're able to dump on hundreds of people's lives' work easily. So I try not to sound like that a lot of times. I do think that, though. I'm not painting myself as a saint. I have those thoughts sometimes. Like when I trip over something and I'm like, dude, why is this here? Like, and then there's thousands of people involved in maintaining all these things, but you know, emotions run high, right? So much like a lot of other things, AI has an interesting place, and I think it would be really cool. My social experiment, which someone mentioned, like it would be good research. I would love to use me and AI, use AI to check me and me to check AI while helping someone. Right? Because I don't have the luxury of sorry, this might be taken out of context. I don't have friends. I don't have friends who are experts in all relevant topics when it comes to helping people, right? Sometimes the person needs help with something I don't know, and I also don't have friends that are experts. I'm not an influencer, so I don't have a lot of influence. I can't call someone off of their busy schedule and say, hey, you know, I have this guy who's having trouble with business and it's really hurting their mental state. So I need some advice on how to give me the crash course on business advice. And then I want to take that knowledge and use it in a way that will help this guy with their psychological problems with the context of the business. So basically, like, if someone approaches you and they have a problem and everything is related to like a big core thing, I don't know, call it money or something, but then I gathered more information and this money comes with like house and mortgage and stuff, right? I don't know any of this stuff, but it would be nice to have access to, even at minimally, an AI who is conditioned, or AI that's trained with this type of information. And I can get a crash course on it, enough for me to inform myself to tackle this person's problem, which is hurting their mental state. So in order to reach a person, you also need to be able to relate to them very quickly. And it is very hard to be the expert of a lot of things. But AI, it can at least provide something, right? Like, for example, what if the person is like, they're having trouble learning English, right? They're having trouble learning English and their native language is French. Well, as much as I understand English and I can like enforce them to use English only gonna work so well. However, if I had an AI that supports me with the French, I can do more than what I can do now. I can use French. That French is communicated efficiently to English. I can learn French. It can help me learn more French while helping this person. And then that person can benefit from both. So this is the way to synergistically use a tool. And that's how I would use a tool. So when I think about teaching someone, like teaching a student, I ask myself, how would I take advantage? How would I take advantage of the tool, right? What can I use? What can I use to benefit from this? And this, without saying too much more and sounding pedantic, this is how I treat Duolingo. Or all the things that people keep saying, Anki, LingQ. The question is, what can the tool do for me? Like, what can I take from it? And not in the sense, I think this is not the greatest, like, how can I maximize what the tool can do for me and what it can't do for me? So then I don't focus on what it can't do. I focus on maximizing what it can do. And then I go find this somewhere else. Because the tool doesn't cap my skills. I cap my skills. So when you go around peddling like you can't be something without X, Y, and Z tools, that's the tool capping you. It's not the other way around. So oftentimes the argument is Duolingo can't do everything. Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people say things like, oh, no single tool can do everything, right? And I usually agree, but not in the same manner. I don't think this is the same manner. No single tool can do everything because you, as a human being, desire more. By the human condition, when you use a tool long enough, you will always, almost always, 90% of the time, you will desire more than what the tool can offer. You will want more. So the human condition we talked about the other day, you want more for yourself. I'm a tool. Technically I am, Cozy. In this relationship, I am the streamer, so I'm providing a content. So technically I am the tool in this perspective. I'm here to give you something that you can either decide to receive or use or take to your advantage, and you can leave, like you can know when I'm not giving you something, so it's voluntarily yours to keep or take advantage of. Yeah, no, I understand, Cozy. Not in an insult way. So the human condition, right? The reason why I agree with people that says no single tool will be everything is because when you use a tool as a human being, if you are a person who grows, learns, and want to be better, you're going to outgrow the tool. No matter what, I almost want to guarantee, but I'm not going to guarantee it. You're going to desire more over time. So it's not just Duolingo, it's everything. You're more than the tool. So instead of focusing on what tools make you, focus on all the things you can steal from a tool. Okay, you're done with Duolingo? Great, you extracted all the value out of Duolingo. Now you're on to Anki. That's fine. That's fine. Why stop there? Why stop at LinQ? Why stop at ChatGPT? Why? You don't need to stop until you're 80 or 90 and you're like, yeah, you know what? I've done it all. I love my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. Fine. That's cool. That's really cool. Until you reach that closure in your life, right? Until you reach that ultimate closure as a human being. Don't stop at something. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. I think a lot of times people think, I have to bring this up one last time, the word gatekeep, right? When you're a gatekeeper, if this is where you belong, right? And you're a gatekeeper right here, right? And you look out into the distance and you see this. You look out into the distance and you see this. To me, my question is, why not leave your community a little bit and take something from here? You don't have to be a gatekeeper for the rest of your life. I know it's very comfortable staying at home, right? It's very comfortable staying at home. But you know what? Sometimes it's great to travel, right? And emotionally, people like to travel, connect with more people. You can stay comfortably and connect with everyone in your own community in home. But, once in a while, you want to travel to Japan, chill a little bit. You might even decide to stay and become the gatekeeper here. And then you look back on yourself, it's like, oh yeah, but I can visit my previous home. And then you're thinking, oh yeah, but this one's pretty cool. Let's travel here. Ireland. Greet the people. It's like, oh yeah, it's great here. Let's be a gatekeeper here. You're a human being, my friends. You are more dynamic. You are more dynamic than I could ever communicate to you. If you don't believe that you are adaptive, that's basically sacrificing the one thing, in my opinion. This is the true sacrifice of being human. If you like to sit in one place, think of one thing, do the same thing for the rest of your life, have everything told to you, always do everything that's prescribed to you without ever once flexing, exploring, and being inquisitive and stuff, without any of that, I honestly think you are sacrificing a part of your humanity, the human condition. The joy of natural curiosity, the joy of the potential of becoming better, the joy of showing things that other people create that you can use and create even more than that. Show evolution, right? That's kind of the thing. So if there's anything kids resonate with, kids, maybe even learners resonate with, is this prospect of a better deal. So going back to ChatGPT, oftentimes when the younger they get, honestly, the least path of resistance that you can focus on, that means it makes your job easier, but try not to be complacent, right? Like as a teacher, it can become complacent. I'm not talking about becoming complacent as in when you take the path of least resistance, that doesn't necessarily mean you should work less hard, as in my opinion, personally. I wouldn't work less hard if the kids are easier. I would still continue to try harder because that benefits me too. It will make my future job easier, the future of that future job easier. If I'm young enough as a teacher and I'm still thriving in energy, I would make sure I use that energy in order for a day when I'm not high in energy. One day I'm going to get old, right? One day I'm going to get exhausted. So whenever I have energy, speaking of a maximalist lifestyle, I want to at least seize the opportunity to get better deals. Keep on laying more and more better deals until one day I'm going to get too old. I'm going to get too exhausted. My eyes don't work. Like I go blind or something. Something's going to happen. So until that day, energy invested in better deals lead to a more secure future. So kids, that's what I want to present them. Because kids now are bombarded by YouTube. They see what's in their future, or they believe they see what's in their future. Well, the question is, as an adult or as a teacher, you can offer them different visions of the future. Much like YouTube. And it's very, very hard. I'm not going to trivialize this at all. As a parent, right? As a parent, as a former language learner, like say a polyglot, like right, you're a polyglot and you have children that you're trying to encourage to learn more language. You are competing with YouTube. Before, if you can't, in my opinion, if you do not compete with YouTube, if you cannot compete with TikTok, if you can't compete with that, like on an emotional level or like some sort of better deal, regardless of what you say or like the context or your expertise, if you cannot get them to listen to you, you are a lost. So the idea now is, how do you encourage behavior that allows them to grow on their own? And for me, it's not about what, like, just taking it back to now the goal, right? Learning Japanese. If you tell them use Anki and you will get better, what does that even look like to a person? Do they even know what this means? It's like, okay, well, then you're going to try to describe more, like make flashcards and do this, right? Do this and that. Okay, that's a little better. That's definitely a little better, right? But they're not seeing any reward. Like, how will I know? How will I know? How do I test it? How can I see results as I'm going? Well, you can do that. And I'm going to guarantee you that if I used Anki, my first things I would do is place these into place. Place these into place. I would establish these things. I would tell myself, okay, so this day, and the successful people who use Anki, people who are successful at using Anki, have already done this. They would say, I would accomplish 20 words a week. Then I would add 10 words into it every week, right? Etc. So they had all these so that they can see the results, test the results. When will they know? And what are the rewards? Okay. Now, does that work for everyone? Well, if I can imagine what Anki is, I will do all of these things and say the same things and perspectives that I say for Duolingo. I see what Duolingo doesn't do, and it does do. You know, things that it's great at, things that they're not great at. And I establish all the other things in it. So in Anki, it would be a different story. It would be I download a bunch of things and here's all the stuff. I'll just keep bootstrapping. Meanwhile, I remind myself, I would set schedules. So most of my conversation is going to be like, oh, today here's my list. If you want to think about it like a theoretical Anki stream, a theoretical Anki stream would be I would BlueStack Anki, right? And it'll show my cards, flashcards, right? And it'll be in the center. I will have a to-do list on the right. I will monitor my own progress, write down all the, this is the stuff that most people already do. Write down the things that I missed, right? Things I didn't. All this stuff, guess what? Guess what Duolingo does? Duolingo removes all of this stuff and make this stuff rigid, the flashcards. So since this stuff is rigid, I have to go and seek what Anki offers, which is like the community filled with content that isn't in Duolingo. But they removed all this stuff. All the emotional baggage, all the things that remind you, oh, you're doing something. Like, oh, here's your track. Here are all your things. And oh, while you're doing that, here's all the people that also enjoys Duolingo. You can chill with them. Have some TikTok animation clips. Because we're competing with TikTok. We're competing with YouTube. We want you to stay on our app that isn't TikTok or YouTube. It's the less, some might even, the people outside Duolingo might say, it's the lesser of two evils. Like, I mean, rather than being on TikTok and you're on Duolingo, it is trading something for something else. But the reason it's the efficacy is it's establishing emotional sentimentalism. It's working on the idea that you can see your progress in action. Right? When you read a textbook, good luck. The best thing I can say about the textbook, in my opinion, right off the top of my head, is probably doing the tests. So like the tests or the quizzes, if the textbook have tests and quizzes. That's why they have tests and quizzes, by the way. One of the biggest psychological things is getting feedback from what you learn. So in textbooks, they have like end of problems at the end of a chapter, quizzes at the end of the chapter, but there isn't someone that tells you, good job, like you're doing well. Like, here's a fun clip of me congratulating you on doing well, right? Or here's me being like, giving you what you need, your feedback that you need to keep going. Well, most of, like a large majority of the effort, I would say even probably greater than 30%, might appear like they're focusing on that aspect. So that's Duolingo's strength. Why do people continue to use something that's so subpar? Well, a lot of people outside of Duolingo would say, I don't understand. Why is Duolingo still so popular? It's like garbage. It doesn't teach things. Like, it doesn't. And then meanwhile, that's because the thing they're focusing on is the flashcard stuff, like what the content is. They're not focusing on all the things they automatically do already. Priorities, motivation, process-oriented checklists, how to make sure that you're not declining, all those things. Those are the things that are harder for whoever is stuck. Like this is harder. Not this. So when I see, going back to the initial question, kids using ChatGPT, I need to figure out from these kids what is harder for them. If there is there a pattern to what is the harder thing, and what are they getting from it? What are their rewards for getting it done? If it's easy to tackle, like harder things tend to have sucky rewards, right? If I can identify this, I'll offer better rewards, better transparency, better rewards. And what happens, I genuinely find this to be more consistent. These kids are brilliant. They're incredibly hardworking, and they understand content very well. There's nothing really wrong with that. There's no deficiency oftentimes. There's far less deficiency than most people put it out. Like what they're putting out now when they're not motivated and not connected is light years lower than when they get better rewards and transparency. So first, find that out. And when I used to, tutor or try to mentor and stuff, that's what I capitalize on. Either they, it could end up being tough love. You have no idea. It's not necessarily, there's no consistent pattern. The idea is you need to find out how you beat what is holding their attention now. You are substituting a habit. So if the habit is to doom scroll TikTok, how do you give them something better than doom scrolling TikTok? Well, I can tell you, it might take a corporation like Duolingo to first start on how to get people to even be addicted to something that involves an educational purpose, versus you going around saying, oh yeah, people who pick up Japanese, they're all those people who just quit after like a week or 2 weeks because they couldn't hack it and stuff. Yeah, that's definitely coming from someone who doesn't care about teaching. It really does. It's not their responsibility, and I totally understand. And they probably say, yeah, I don't want to be a teacher. I'm making an observation. It's objectively true. It's like, yes, it is. It's also unfeeling, and you don't care about it. If it's objectively true, then you don't care about it. You can say objective things because they're not emotionally charged, or you don't want them to be emotionally charged, right? That makes sense. To me, I do care about it. So if you don't care about teaching, then stop providing teaching advice, right? It's fair. It's objective. If you say you don't care about kids and you're always complaining about how like anime people thought learning Japanese was easy and they quit after 3 days, and most of them just hit Duolingo up for like 3 weeks and they quit, like, okay, well, first of all, sometimes there's a thing that I started wondering. There's a point where people quit because of toxicity, not because of a product. Because the toxicity is targeting a product. Well, how's that much different than a teacher saying video games rot your brain? Stop wasting time. Stop wasting time playing video games that you're good at. That's the same, in my opinion, from a teacher and a psychological perspective. It's no different than an Anki user telling them that Duolingo doesn't teach them vocabulary. Instead of using what Duolingo does best and then getting them to use Anki, with Duolingo. It's like, okay, what do I do a lot of times? I do this in real action. When a stranger comes to me and they say, oh yeah, I really love learning Mandarin and stuff, I give them another reason to want to learn Mandarin. Like, hey, if you're feeling demotivated today, can you learn something so you can share it with me? I would be very grateful. Like, it would be fun. Like, we'll go back and forth. I know Sub-Zero's, I don't even know if Sub-Zero's awake right now, but I'm sure Sub-Zero might find this a little bit personal, but I do this with everyone. I try to ask enough questions, and if they stay long enough, I have to get enough about the person so that I can offer them something. What can I offer? I can offer them my time, right? The thing that I can offer that's kind of free. Obviously, I have to eat and sleep and all that, and you can make an argument that that translates to a cost, but at least I can afford to do that. So when someone says their life is boring, I ask them, tell me about it. And then if they think their life is like 1 in excitement, right? I find out what they find is exciting, right? And come on, I can do better than a 1. Come on. Like, if they say their life is the most boring thing in the world and they don't even think it's interesting to a stranger, you're starting at level 1. So take the first thing that person is willing to share and you be excited about it, right? You give them ideas, and this 1 could turn into a 2. Fast forward a semester. Fast forward like a semester, right? Maybe half a year. A semester is half a year, right? This 2 might turn into a 5. And then you don't need to do anything anymore. Like sit back and watch this person change the world, in my opinion. I know that sounds a little bit romantic, but we're talking about like someone who then becomes 30 years old at some point. It's a long process, obviously, but I truly believe when you get someone started, when they get going, yeah, you can largely sit back and hope that they don't hit a big luck sucks, you know. Sometimes people get unlucky, for sure. You can get unlucky, but when you get them started, it's good to go. So in the future, I don't see kids being told, in my opinion, from I guess the MAKU school of unofficial educational advice, right? Unofficial educational advice. I see kids being able to use ChatGPT differently. So all of these kids in the future will be able to use a tool that I can't comprehend anymore. But one thing I can do is continue to encourage them outside my depth. How is that any different from trying to teach my parents how to use a smartphone? Right? How is that any different from my parents teaching their parents what is high definition television? Right? So one day I will be too old. I would be too old and not hip enough or edgy enough to keep up to date with kids' capacity to use tools. But for now, instead of taking tools away from them, which is what I've been saying, and we'll go back to the original wrap-up message that I mentioned before, why take a tool away when you can learn from it? As in, learn about the tool. What works, what doesn't. Take that, throw in Anki, If you came from memorize, throw in memorize. Take it like removing resources is what I truly call counterproductive. That is, if there's anything that I feel like people would not disagree, like they would likely agree with me consistently, is if you remove options, you have less options. That's all. Right? When you move options, you reduce potential. That's inherent. So, no, I'm never going to tell. I can't. I literally can't, because that would be a lie. I literally, well, I technically I can. I guess I'm taking this too low. Figuratively, I can lie. If I was some person who want to deceive someone, but it would be a lie that I say I only use Duolingo. But that doesn't stop anyone from assuming I only use Duolingo. In fact, I didn't even use only Duolingo. Duolingo, I've been using something for Japanese before Duolingo. I said this so often. I listen to Japanese. Like, and many kids, many people don't even factor this in. They don't even count this as something that is a basis. Your interest in anime and your interest in anime is part of the process. So, did I learn anything interesting today? Oh my gosh, Lotus, don't you at me. Well, you old butthead. I'm busy digressing. Okay. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. I think this digression is gonna be encouragement through better deals, right? When you want to get someone to learn something, I suppose, offer them a better deal. And what I mean by better deal is you also have to establish rapport. I always mess up how to spell rapport, but you get it. This is not how you spell rapport. Maybe it's this. You have to establish you have to establish the oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, thanks. Rapport. Is this a French word? I need a French person to help me out. Is this a French word? That's why it's pronounced rapport. Like, it's spelled this way. I swear if this is a French word. But rapport, I use this a lot spoken, but I rarely write it out. So rapport, you establish. From the French, rapporter, according to Google. Yep. Okay. So rapport, if you can get someone to know what they want, what they value, where they're getting it, and what they're doing, it's worth the investment first. Before you go and do the classical internet expert, in my opinion, the classical internet expert thing, and do what a lot of scientists, a lot of hyper objective people do, which is sound like AI. Basically, I collected all this data. This is the statistical likely most optimized. Here is a laundry list of all the most consistent things. I don't have time to deal with you as a human being, so here's the most efficient response, and here's the collective. Instead of, establish rapport, because your goal is, right, to care about the person, right? You're trying to show that you care about this person. If you don't, stop saying you do, which is so tough. I swear. Or like, those 90% of critics, they say, oh, but I care about language learning. What about all the other kids that might get the wrong impression? I'm so sick and tired of seeing people peddle the wrong idea. Like, no, you don't. Like, I'm sorry, but no, you don't. You're telling me that you care about people like me, like language learners, but instead you focus on calling someone out, not trying to establish rapport. And then you expect that stranger to listen to you. I humbly, respectfully tell you, you need a lesson in communication. And you are not a teacher. Because a teacher, in my opinion, first want to know what that person wants, what that person needs, or what they want to get out of it. Then you offer advice, right? And because you're such an expert, you have lots of things. You know a lot of things. So you pick the appropriate thing to say to them. You're the expert. You have all the information, presumably, right? You think you have all the information. Even for the arrogant people, all the information. I wouldn't even think about this. I have some information. And my goal is to determine if I have information that's useful. So information that's appropriate. You can't, by trying to sound like a expert that knows AI objective language and say, I know all the statistics. Here it is. Yep. You need Anki, immersion, Anki, immersion. Go find some native scripts. Oh, what was that? Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't know you were a human being. Oh, no. I didn't know you already did that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of awkward, isn't it? I didn't know you were doing all these things. I'm just telling the facts. This is the conversation I have so often. I'm just telling the facts about what other people are trying. So these are facts. And I'm like, I'm sorry if I made the assumptions. Like, no, it's not. It doesn't change anything. You establish all the wonderful things that I know are true. They are facts. But you treated me like a dumpster. You treated me like an object. You didn't even ask me what I'm doing already. You didn't know or even bother knowing what I did already. You have no idea. Zero compassion, because you thought being an expert makes you better at teaching a human being. So, yes, you can offer advice. No, you do not care about teaching people. Because if you did, you would ask first. How much time have I spent with Duolingo? So in this 64 days, I average about 6 hours with Duolingo in context. So let's do 6 times 64, about 400 hours. Do I use Duolingo in that time? Probably half of the time I'm literally using Duolingo. The other half is me droning on about someone asking a really wonderful question, and I try to make it as relevant to Duolingo as I can. But ultimately, it comes with a very, very humble encouragement that I want to tell people, don't sell yourself short. I'll end this section with, don't sell yourself short. If I had to discourage something, right? Try not to sell yourself short, right? And tools try not to let tools define and cap your innovation. And if you want one last thing is, or two last things. Strive to be better. strive to be better than the tools. It's a little different between trying not the tools to cap you, because that's a different perspective, and then striving to be better than tools, right? You're as a human being, you have a higher capacity, in my opinion, right? A higher capacity. That's what one of the themes of the question about ChatGPT and stuff. And then last one is teaching and advice starts with rapport. If you're someone that goes up to a stranger online and you dehumanize them, you are projecting. You are likely, almost 90% of the time, you're projecting, because you have no idea what this human is like. You are assuming all of it. So where are all your assumptions coming from? Your own thoughts. You haven't removed any doubt of what they're doing. So YouTube does do that. It does it very often, and content creators set themselves up for that too. Much like our whole polyglot situation that we were alluding to. They set themselves up for it too. It's a feedback loop. People who expect people to be inhuman, as in they can do supernatural human things all the time, and it's encouraged, so the content creators then present themselves as subhuman. They are always happy, they are always filled with life, they can do things in like 15 seconds or learn 40 languages in one day. I know I'm being hyperbolic so that I don't want to touch on anyone's toes. Hyperbolic claims. It's a two-person body problem. I do not sell those. You start with rapport, and a relationship with anyone between humans first comes with mutual respect, right? Mutual respect. That's what rapport, a defining element of rapport is. And informed or compassion. Informed compassion. It comes with informed compassion. So yes, to the critics, I've already read that huge essay that I've written. If that person's responding, that's awesome. Like, if you spend some more time, if you move on, that's perfectly fine. But one thing I can tell you is gatekeeping can apply to narrow-mindedness. You have gated your opinions on how to reach people. So if you don't want to work on your communication skills, that's perfectly fine with me. Try not to be so offended, I suppose, if you don't understand why someone doesn't want to relate to you when you can't even show them the mutual respect of being informed. Which other platform do I stream? I stream on YouTube. So I simultaneously stream on YouTube and Twitch. Dang. And there you go. So there you go. My last thing is, like, I actually think the people I've met do this. They do this, and I do believe that more people are likely to thank you and listen to you and want to help you in the long run, or even give you things or become your friends, if you ironically behave like a businessman in a different way, in both practicality, like objectivity, and subjectivity. How do you get someone to buy your product? You have to establish rapport. How do you get someone to buy into your advice or trust you? You have to establish rapport. So yeah, that is gatekeeping. Do you know what gatekeepers do? They don't care about the stranger. They only care if you fill the requirements. That's not rapport. That's you stopping someone from entering your domain. It's not you trying to travel into someone else. The stranger who's trying to enter the community is challenged with getting into someone's good grace. They're trying to fulfill your qualities. So when you offer advice, that works the other way around. You walked into someone else's house. You're offering them advice, but you can't even give them the time of day to understand what's going on in the house. So now you're officially the visitor, and I guess I'm the gatekeeper. And the idea about that is that gatekeeping is not inherently negative. You can be aware of gatekeeping, and you can make it friendly. Think of it as a Walmart greeter. Now, this is a bad analogy. But if I had a restaurant and I own the restaurant, I will be the host because I want to greet everyone at the door with welcome arms. Like, it is my job to establish rapport, and they are more willing to stay and buy my food or pay my restaurant staff and, you know, all that stuff. They're more willing to stay and spend time and buy whatever I'm selling. So if you're selling advice, or you're not selling advice, or you're offering advice, well, if no one asked and you want to get someone to accept your unsolicited advice, it would be so meaningful if you spent at least 10 minutes asking questions to know that you're genuinely interested. Not go up and plaster. This is like the new age YouTube comment section. You can get video comment advice 9 out of 10 times, and it would just be based on the text or the thumbnail. And then you wonder and then you challenge me and say, you're not gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is a prejudice. It's make things inaccessible. What is it? So if you say my content is garbage, that's gatekeeping. You're making my content inaccessible to other people. You're reducing the accessibility of someone else's things because it's not relevant to you. It's crazy, but hey. So encourage other human beings. I love the challenge. In the future, maybe I want to tutor people. Like, I want to tutor like kids in writing, or maybe even teach English as a second language in a tutor way, right? Because I truly am curious if I could get my methods or the things that I think about to get someone to use ChatGPT, but like blast past me. Like, make beautiful essays by taking advantage of how fast ChatGPT can collect ideas, and then how they can like work their workflow around it. I can't think like that anymore. So when I go in ChatGPT and I say, can you summarize the first 4 points? I spend more time trying to deconstruct and say, yeah, but I wouldn't write it this way. Like, I can't do it this way. Like, this is not even right. Like, I actually spend more time having trouble with ChatGPT creating an essay more than, and that's because I didn't grow up with it. I didn't build a whole workflow around ChatGPT. But what if I encouraged kids who are already doing it and incentivizing them to do even more than that? What would that product look like? And I think that is working with someone. Like, if the kids are already going to use ChatGPT and it's like their primary source and it's the thing that lowers the barrier, if you strip that away from them and not even get the opportunity to understand what it offers to them, like, for example, saying Duolingo sucks, and then and then someone asks you, when was the last time you used Duolingo? Oh, 2019. Oh, so 6 years ago. Okay. Do you know what people use Duolingo for now? Because the year is 2024. And it's ironic because it goes back, and throw one more, that YouTuber that said, wake up, it's 2024, stop using Duolingo for Japanese. The irony here is, yeah, is 2024. That's exactly the point. When was the last time you used it? Right? So, hey, that's a personal opinion, but I have to make it about Duolingo in some way. The thing is, why not both? Why not everything? Honestly, if you're so smart and you're so great, you will, in my opinion, you will be able to find and take all the best things that makes many things popular. Duolingo is popular. Find out why. Use those strategies. Use that. Strip it from Duolingo and then put it into another product that is offering something else, which is also popular. Statistically, if you are so objective about this and say, oh yeah, Duolingo is worthless, it's useless, why is it popular? Can you explain that? And the first comment I always hear from emotionally charged people a lot of times is, I don't understand why people keep using Duolingo. It's like, well, yeah, there's your first mark. Can you find out? Because it's very understandable if you know. You have to understand your opponent. It's kind of back to that art of war comment yesterday. Understand your opponent. Use that to your advantage. And your tool, or whatever your future is going to include all of it. So, all of the above. Above until it's not useful anymore. If you definitely did not find Duolingo, that's fine. Do you think that means it's not useful to other people? Ask them. Ask them. Okay? Alright. There you go. And I still haven't finished my lessons. So let's try to finish my lessons. The problem now is I have 5 more lessons. I had to finish a unit. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Let's do it.